Alrighty, folks, it is time for round 3 of Grand Prix Everrime. We've escaped the Black-Red Reanimator text, but we are not out of the woods by any means, because we're up against another pretty strong mid-range strategy in Green-White Golden Age in the hands of Viola. Now, this is going to be an interesting matchup because Viola and I have actually played against each other with our respective strategies once before. I think I've mentioned previously in this GP run, possibly in the deck tech, that I'd done a league play through, made a league run with mono white, and had 5 pretty fun matchups. Viola was my first opponent in that league run, and it was one of the closest nail biters of that league run. I think we do have some advantages in this matchup, but our opponent has the ability to turn the corner pretty darn effectively. So we're really going to have to fight for every inch we can take here. So this is Green White Golden Age. Sort of stepping away from the Golden Age decks of yesteryear, where previously Golden Age was a 2 mana crop rotation. You'd use it to go kind of fix your mana really aggressively, get a bunch of different fixing lands and utility lands. Back when we redeveloped Cityscape, was sort of a proper cultivate on a land. Could turn it into Harmony, which was much more powerful back then. Only required 2 conditions checked off instead of 3. Golden Age hasn't really seen a whole lot of play since its nerf last year, but with this buff, while it's still hard to flip over because it requires 3 turns of effort, while the flip side of Harmony is still rather sluggish to really start putting in a bunch of work, Golden Age is now more reliable on its floor, because it is just a lay of the land on an enchantment. And that can just be enough. That's just a reasonable card. I think lay of the land effects are actually pretty reasonable in this day and age. It lets this grindy mid-range deck get away with 23 lands instead of maybe 24 or 25. They've got a relatively high basic count, and they can reliably do that. And as a result, what we have here really is a rejuvenation session deck that does not feel the need to hang its hat on Welkin Eviction as the end-all be-all for the strategy. This does not have to be a heavy base white deck. Instead, this is a deck leaning heavily on green-white gold cards to really get a lot of work done. So alongside the 4 Golden Ages, there's a playset of Huskforger Acolytes just as really reliable ramp. And then the rest of the creature suite is pretty value oriented. 3 copies of Syra Blade of Memory are going to be a bit of a headache for us just because it lets them pad their life total, draw some cards, put counters on their creatures. And Syra Blade of Memory's full suite of effects, the card draw and the +1/+1 counters, can be provided by a single copy of Survivors of the New World. 4 mana 1/1 that gets to make 2 copies of it when it enters, and when it dies, you get to go find a creature card, the next creature card in your deck, and put it into your hand. When this enters, it and the 2 tokens will trigger Syra 3 times, gaining you 3 life, drawing you a card, and putting a +1/+1 counter on Syra, all 3 survivors, and any other creatures that were already in play. And then that's backed up by a playset of Indomitable G-Crew, as more life gain and card draw, another solid mid-rangey threat. And then, you can wander it for 8 mana to anthem your creatures for +2/+2, making all of these survivors and acolytes even more deadly. And then a single copy of Dawn Hymn Herald, kind of pulling double duty here just as a way to block flyers. That was something that Viola lacked in our league match, and I think it's going to be pretty relevant in this matchup, as evidenced by how much the lack of flyers has mattered in the rounds we've played thus far. But also just, more life gain, more ground stalling. This is another card that, alongside Syra, can just single-handedly trigger all of Syra's effect by just making 2 soldiers. Can pick up a Survivors of the New World, can pick up an Indomitable G-Crew, can pick up a Huskforger Acolyte if needed. If you just are really desperate on getting the life gain and the removal, or the life gain and the tokens. So For an aggro deck, this is a lot of life gain in the creature suite to be staring down between the Syras, between G Crew, between Herald. And it doesn't get any better because I mentioned this is a rejuvenation session strategy as well. Of course, for folks who have been getting used to seeing session this season, 2 mana sorcery, you gain X life. Look at the top X cards of your library, and get 2 creatures, enchantments, and/or land cards from among them to your hand. X is the greatest mana value among permanents you control as this spell resolves. So typically we are used to seeing this with Welkin Eviction because that is a 6 and a white, banishing light effect that could cost as little as a single white mana. So then Rejuvenation Session, I've been calling this like the green dig through time in those contexts because when you have so many creatures, enchantments, and lands in your deck and so little anything else, it is very easy for Rejuvenation Session, digging 7 deep, getting 2 cards, gaining you 7 life, to feel like a dig through time. Sorcery speed, of course, but still, that is pretty remarkable in terms of its reliability. And we see how that can impact deck building here because there are 10 cards out of the main 60 that Rejuvenation Session can't get here. Now, granted, there's no Welkin Evictions. The deck can't get up to mana value 7 on board, but they have Indomitable G Crew and Dawn Him Herald to get up to 5. 2 copies of a Planeswalker we'll talk about a little more in just a moment. At 6, so like casting Rejuvenation Session for even just 4 with Survivors of the New World in play, is dig 4 cards deep, get 2 of them to your hand, gain 4 life. That can be really meaningful to generate both card advantage and buy yourself time. So that's what, like 11 cards in the deck that just gain life in some capacity while also doing other things, primarily while also generating card advantage in some capacity. That is going to bury us real quick if we are not quick ourselves. So that is going to be a problem in its own right. Of course, also backed up by interaction, a lot of it. There is 4 copies of Sanctum of Repression, doing something similar to the Dawn Him Herald in terms of picking up your things, but also just, especially in this matchup, it's going to be able to pick off a lot of our permanents pretty reliably. 3 copies of Sealing Strike for a similar functionality, and of course, all of these are enchantments that can be found off of the Rejuvenation Session. 2 copies each of Plasma Strike to kill smaller things and Swift Reproach to kill bigger things, to exile bigger things, importantly. And then 2 copies of Sylvia the Rewoven Oath, 6 mana, 5 loyalty Flash Planeswalker that can untap up to 3 permanents and gain 3 life. There's more life gain. -2 to make a 4/4 flyer. That's another big problem for us. And then -4 destroys all creatures except for the biggest creature on each side of the board, which they can then just they can do that at instant speed with Sylvia, and then just on their turn follow up with Sanctum of Repression or Sealing Strike to clean up the mess. So if the game starts to go long, we are going to suffer pretty drastically here. So we really do need things to turn our favor rather quickly. This is going to be a matchup where I think if the hand is like kind of on the line, I'm inclined to mulligan because I need a hand that needs to be more patently explosive. Beyond that, some utility lands in the mana base, 1 each of Buffer, Reconservatory, and Stack Conviviplex, the sort of leveling lands. 2 copies of Hopeful Soul Space, 2 copies of Gilded Court, 2 copies of Verdant Sanctum, and then 4 Primal Fissures, 5 Plains, and 6 Forests. Make up the bulk of the main deck. So, very, very grindy strategy, trying to sort of push out as much value as possible. The one advantage that we do have is that Dawn Him Herald is their only flying blocker. The Herald and then the 2 Sylvias. So, like very light on flying blockers, and their flying blockers are pretty high cost. So if we can get on the board quickly, specifically with a bunch of flying angels, we can take advantage of that to try and push through. And of course, if we can stick 2 of our Aegis of Graces, then their targeted removal doesn't do a whole lot. Though there is one last card we ought to talk about here, which is the one of Chromatic Rift in the main board. So this is one of the other beneficiaries of the CNY buff patch. 4 mana destroy only all multicolored creatures, all monocolored creatures, or all colorless creatures. This deck gets a lot of mileage out of this because so many of their threats are multicolored. Genuinely, like, G-Crews, Survivors, Syras, all really valuable to keep on board. And then, oh no, you lose like a Mana Dork or two, and then you probably haven't even played Daunt Him Herald yet. So Rift is very likely to be a one-sided board wipe. The only creature in our deck that survives Chromatic Rift on monocolored creatures is Tomer. And, if they're able to clear everything but Tomer, obviously Tomer's Conspire Clause doesn't really matter as much, and they can also just, Swift Reproach it or Sealing Strike to get rid of Tomer after the fact. So the one of Chromatic Rift is going to be the ultimate silver bullet in this matchup, which makes it very unfortunate as we look at the sideboard that they have 3 more. So post board, that's going to be a full set of Chromatic Rifts, as well as a couple other tools here. So let's talk about the stuff that won't matter so much post board. 3 copies of Faces of the Faceless are not for us. 1 Disestablishmentarianism, not for us. 1 Illustrious Shangfa, I could see them bringing it in, but I don't think will be super relevant here. It's just a little too slow. 2 copies of Purifier of Dawnbloom Grove, I could see them boarding in case they are worried about us boarding in our own enchantments. Same with the 3 copies of Hungry Blob. But I think the most relevant things here are really just going to be the 1 additional copy of Dawn Him Herald, the 1 additional copy of Plasma Strike, and of course the 3 Chromatic Rifts. Would not be surprised to see, maybe the Sylvias come out, and maybe the like Swift Reproaches in favor of the like Plasma Strikes, the Chromatic Rifts. And then probably, maybe down a G-Crew, up a Dawn Him Herald, because they all are like 5 mana gain, 5 life. And then G-Crew, while it does draw you cards, that body not having reach is going to be pretty painful. So that's my anticipation on where the sideboard's going to go here. I think this is going to be a very difficult match game 1. I think this is going to be a very difficult match games 2 and potentially 3. So we'll sort of get into how we're navigating it as we get into the game. I'm recording this pretty well in advance of the actual match beginning. So obviously, for me, I've got a little bit of time to wait before my match begins. But for all of you, don't go anywhere, obviously. We're just about to hop into the match right about now. Alrighty, we're dived in here. Opponent has arrived in the match, and we have won the die roll 14-11. So I am on the play, and that is a good way to kick this match off here. Opening hand is a 1-lander with nothing to really follow it up with. That's going to be a mull to 6 pretty easily here. Some solid cards there, but just need the second land. And that's a terrible omen. Onomastic is pretty good here, but not so relevant in the main just because of the singleton Chromatic Rift. But yeah, double Tomer, double Onomastic, Line Warden, consume, single land. Yikes. That might just be how this GP ends for us. Okay, 4 lands, double Tomer, and reinforcements. That, I think, to me, says we are putting a Mesa back and putting a Tomer back. All right. Mesa to the bottom, Tomer to the bottom. And we're just going to play Fisher and pass. Shocking in Sanctum, so that tells me, okay, Golden Age I would much rather see here. That's nice. Gonna give them their second land drop. Get a Forest. We are, I think, going to hold off on cracking here. Yeah, I think the wastes is still worth grabbing in case we find... Actually, no, I think given where we're at right now, Neostelia is just like a fine turn 3 play. So we're going to crack the Fisher now before the game goes too far. Alrighty. We find an Aegis of Grace. Okay. So maybe we would have drawn another land to get these 4-drops rolling, but can't be certain. We are going to play a Plains and just ship on over. Opponent knows we're on reinforcements, can easily see it coming, but we have no reason to run this out at sorcery speed anyhow. We might as well just run out the reinforcements. They also know that we're on a mold of 5, so there's no guarantee we have the reinforcements here. But, you know, of course we do have the reinforcements. Opponent plays Buffery Conservatory and passes. So this is going to be an open window to start swinging in a little bit. Would not mind to consume the Divine off the top if we don't find that 4th land. But we'll see. That is a Devotee. Okay, so now there's an interesting conversation to be had here. I think it's going to be swing in with just a single creature, Devotee, rush out Ages of Grace. I think we're going to run out Tomer first, actually, because if we can get Tomer down, we can Convoke and Conspire out the Aegis of Grace, and that's going to be a lot of value. So, Plains here. Let's run out Devotee. Let's go to combat and just swing the normal soldier. If they have a Plasma Strike, they could Plasma Strike the soldier token here, but I'm not sure that's amazing. Then we will Convoke out a Tomer. I also would just much rather Tomer get hit by the first removal spell rather than Aegis of Grace. Opponent is going to, looks like Plasma Strike the Devotee here. Sure thing. Devotee down. Unfortunate. We do still have the potential to go for double Aegis of Grace if we find an untapped land or a Devotee here. They pay 3 mana, Sealing Strike, so no Conspired Aegis of Grace. Yep, and that's this matchup in a nutshell. They're just going to remove all our things, and then we're just not going to have anything going for us. That is another Reinforcements. Chip in. Pass over. 5 cards in their hand to 2 cards in ours. The second Reinforcements will do us some good, though. They have Plains. I believe they got a forest off of the Golden Age. Syra is really rough here. We will go for the Reinforcements. We're just going to kind of distribute out here. Untap. Draw. Coalesced Mesa. So swinging in sacrifices one of our creatures for the sake of getting 3 damage in. I think we're just better off running out the Aegis and passing. It's not great. You know, we're empty-handed against a deck that is very much built to grind the game to a halt. So running out of gas this early is just unfortunate. Costs 2 mana? That is awful to know, but they do have to do that on their turn, not ours. Yeah, they were treating it like Path to Exile, I'm assuming, or a Plasma Strike here. Alrighty. Opponent has fourth land. They're going to forego the removal here to get Survivors of the New World rolling. That's going to gain them 3 life, draw them a card, put a counter on all of their creatures. And I think that's just going to be curtains for us in no time. They could try and swing Syra here, trade with Aegis, and burn a Plasma Strike to 2-for-1 us, or 2-for-1 themselves, but it's not really a 2-for-1 when the Syra has already drawn a card here. So yeah, and then this is part of why I was like, I don't really want to swing the 1/1s into the Syra just for the sake of saying I swung into the Syra. Already played a land this turn. Yeah. Because started this turn with the forest. Yep, so they're just going to pass on over here. Can't quite swift approach yet, but well, I am half a mind to just concede here because I see the writing on the wall. Like, in all honesty, this game could take a little bit longer to be brought to the farm up state. Yeah, this is just not going well for us. This is a really rough matchup. We had to mulligan twice to a hand that really wasn't going to do a ton in the face of interaction. And yeah, it's not going great. I'm going to stick it out, but I will not pretend to have a whole lot of hope here. Swing 4, deal 4, gain 4, and pass. I'll use this Primal Fissure to go get the wastes here, so that way, at the very least, I can have an untapped land, but not super optimistic. I would not actually be opposed to the opponent just swinging all out. I'm not sure I would ever be in the position of wanting to block. Yeah, now that Gilded Court can come down and pick off the Aegis of Grace for good. We will get to see sort of the benefit of our opponent being on some copies of that Swift Reproach, though, because we have an empty hand. We will be able to draw a card. Plasma Strike, not super relevant against the 4/4, thankfully. Worst case scenario here, I'm going to hate that I'm speaking this into existence, is that the opponent just doesn't even bother with the Plasma Strike, and they go for their one of Dawnhymn Herald and just exile the Aegis of Grace. I will concede to that. I think there would be no beating the Dawnhymn Herald. But it does look like we're just... Oh, no, we're getting Sanctumed. I am gonna just call that GG's, because that means that we know that they still have a removal spell in hand. Yeah, we're not breaking free of that. That is the deck doing what it's built to do. So the upsides here are, again, I think the opponent is very likely to go up. I think it's possible that the opponent goes up Purifier and Hungry Blob. I've already plotted out what my sideboard plan is going to be here, and it's going to be keeping myself safe to those spells. Now they do still have Game against Containment Seraph and Consume the Divine, but if we bring in Sanctum of Repression or Golden Bloom of the Silence, we are making ourselves weaker to those answers. And also what I've been finding in this matchup is that while I like Sanctum of Repression, I don't like that this is just something that they can Sanctum to free their own thing, and then it creates this Sanctum war. I'm not even going to begin with that. I'm boarding in Gentle Grasp and Cloud9 as the only options here. Gentle Grasp to give us some more counterplay on the stack, slow down their turns a little bit, coupled with Cloud9 here as sort of multifaceted here, give ourselves a little more pressure with the Acclimate and do its damn job of picking off Sanctum of Repressions and Sealing Strikes. As far as the things we are boarding out, we're going to take out one Aegis of Grace. I think I like this card a lot, but we really do need to have two in play for it to be meaningful. And you might think, well, then why are you boarding one out? It's because I think it's just so unlikely that we get to a place of being able to resolve two. We would have to resolve one with a Tomer conspiring out the second. And at that point, the second Aegis of Grace isn't really doing us a whole lot in that measure. I'm going to board out one Consume the Divine. I'm going to board out two Blessed Line Wardens. Our ground pressure is just really not meaningful, which means that the soldiers component of Line Wardens is just not super important. And I'm going to board out one of our Resolute Reinforcements. So that's going to be the game plan. And maybe this can go our way in the next two games. I will say, I think that there are some really favorable matchups for my strategy in this field, but we have run into some truly awful matchups for this deck thus far. I don't think we're completely dead in the water. Again, I think there's a lot of things that could go well for us in these next two games. We do need our mulligans to be a little kinder to us, but we'll see what happens. But that being said, these have just been some really particularly tricky matches to navigate. And I don't think it's going to get much easier if we do keep going forward here. I'll play. Oh, boy. Another one-lander. This one does have Ambitious Angels, Onomastics, and a Cloud9 and Containment Seraph. But with 19 lands here, we do have plays into the first couple turns. We do have a second Ambitious Angel. We do have Cloud9. Don't love being sort of locked into that being how we get out of this game, but something to consider at the very least. It's not the best one-lander we could have. If this had a Devotee in it, I'd be much more excited about this because we could have Devotee, Ambitious Angel on turn one. If I could swap out this Onomastic for a Devotee, that would be perfect. But no such luck. A turn two Devotee, if we whiff on the land, but we do draw the Devotee as our first draw, that at least allows us to play Devotee, second Ambitious Angel, swing with the first Angel, untap all of our soldiers, and then convoke out the Containment Seraph. Maybe to pick off one drop, but I think this has got to be a Mold 6. All right, that is an acceptable, not amazing, but acceptable 6. Opponent has also Mold to 6. We're gonna keep 6. Could drop Fisher here. Could drop Plains. Could drop Line Warden. I'm keeping the Aegis. I'm keeping the Onomastic. I think they went up to the third Plasma Strike. I think they went up to the 4 copies of Chromatic Rift. I think they went up to the second Dawnhim Herald. Those are the things I'm most confident about having happened here. I think with that in mind, I could choose Plasma Strike or Sanctum of Repression with the Onomastic here. I think it's going to be Line Warden going away here. So we're going to go Primal Fisher and pass. We're going to crack this for the Wastes, I think. Crack here, go find the Wastes. Draw Softlight Harmonist. Alrighty. Neostelia as land for turn. Virtualized Onomastic. I think I'm going to name Plasma Strike. Actually, no. I am gonna name Sanctum of Repression. So that does mean that they could put a blocker into play for the virtualized onomastic, but that means they would be functionally discarding their Sanctum of Repression to do so. And then I'm very comfortable with just, play out Softlight Harmonist, pick up the onomastic, reset onomastic, name Chromatic Rift. Okay, they have a Golden Age here. Plains is the find. Okay. We draw Plains as land for turn. Go to combat. We swing 2. They take it. I'm not at the point where I want to be Gentle Grasping yet. Let's Harmonist. See if they have a response. Okay, opponent says okay. So we will pick up the onomastic, counter on the Harmonist. Recast onomastic. I'm almost inclined to say Syra here, because Syra is the best follow-up for them. Yeah, let's say Syra. It was Syra, Blade of Memory. Okay, they crack Fisher here. Second Forest is interesting. They play that Plains. Let's see what they've got. Syra does put a blocker into play for the onomastic. Unfortunately, onomastic does not line up well into their Chromatic Rifts, because if they choose monocolor, they get to keep the construct token. So if they do play into the onomastic to get a blocker here, their Chromatic Rifts will appreciate it. I think, though, if they do play a Syra here into the onomastic, what that tells me is that they're getting ready to gear up for a Chromatic Rift, and so I should Gentle Grasp, leave Gentle Grasp up rather than running out the Aegis. They go for Sanctum of Repression instead, so they're going to repress the Softlight Harmonist. Okay, so clear the token, clear the counter, and then Harmonist under the Sanctum. We untap, we draw another Harmonist. I mean, we're going to play out the Plains. I would love to go Harmonist, pick up Onomastic, reset Onomastic. I mean, if we're gonna play the Harmonist, we're gonna reset Onomastic, name Chromatic Rift anyhow. So we might as well. Let's go to combat, swing 2. Harmonist. Pick it up. Set annotation to Chromatic Rift. The thing that most likely kills me here. And we pass. Oh, this should have a +1/+1 counter because it was the only target. Rejuvenation Session to gain 2 and look at the top 2. Wow. This could be a whiff. Very unlikely, but it could be. Because it could be 2 instants and or sorceries. Okay, it's Gilded Court, Sanctum of Repression. So they're going to get Gilded Court, play it as land for turn. That does not mean that they can Sanctum here, which is nice. Or rather, that does mean they cannot Sanctum here. We untap, we draw. Coalesced Mesa is the draw for turn. We will run out Coalesced Mesa, go to combat, swing 4. Main 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, Aegis of Grace. So they would need a 3-mana creature plus Sanctum of Repression. They would need land, 3-mana creature, Sanctum of Repression to clear the Aegis of Grace with the revealed removal spell. We will pass. And then from here on out, we can just keep Gentle Grasp up. They do tap Gilded Court, make it a Plains. We'll have to navigate the rest carefully. Opponent is thinking on their draw step. I could see a couple different avenues for Viola to kind of, yank control back into their favor here. One of the advantages we do have in terms of their long-term plan is just that Golden Age has not gotten any progress yet, but I don't think that will matter. Mostly because I think if Golden Age ever flips, the game is already just long over. But Chromatic Rift being offline does mean that... Oh, passes the turn. Interesting. So Plasma Strike and Swift Approach would be the cards in hand. No Sylvia could do anything here. No flash threats. That's exciting. We untap. We draw Tomer, Figurehead President. We'll go to combat and swing in for 8. Does look like Plasma Strike number 1 on Aegis. Oh, put it back in hand. This one first. Swift Reproach on Aegis of Grace. Okay. Nah. All right, so we protect our Aegis from this first Swift Reproach. They'll be able to play it on future turns. They take 8. We gain 4. And pass with Tomer in hand. So they can play the Swift Reproach on their next turn, but they will have to discard a card to do so. And we will get to draw a card off of the Aegis of Grace after the fact. This does mean, though, that if they are to, fire off Swift Reproach Plasma Strike, they have to do so on their turn with this current mana, which means that they don't get to use this mana to try and stabilize the board otherwise, which is nice. Hungry Blob costs 3. Oh, they're discarding it to cast the Swift Approach. Okay. We draw past a plains. Oh, they didn't even use Gilded Court to make it a forest. So taken off by the Gentle Grasp there. They are going to free up Chromatic Rifts in their hand. I'm not necessarily sure I agree with that play, but we'll see how much it matters. He will untap and draw another Gentle Grasp. We'll play Plains. Go to combat, swing 2. Main 2, let's pay 1, 2, 3, 4 for a Tomer Figurehead President, and ship on over. And if the play here is Chromatic Rift on multicolor, we've got the Gentle Grasp to seal it up. Whew. Stack interaction. It's not just for blue anymore. I mean, this has been around for almost 2 years now, but Survivors of the New World, I would like to respond. I'll Gentle Grasp that. GG, we get to game 3. Alrighty. So on the draw here, does anything change? I think Plasma Strike is still just not relevant in this matchup. I don't love boarding in Sanctum. We saw that they boarded in the Hungry Blobs. It's possible they boarded out now that they're on the play, but I can't imagine they want to take the risk. I think we just stick it as is, so. You know, Line Wardens and Resolute Reinforcements wouldn't have changed much of that outcome. The Line Wardens would have actually made, the removal spells cost an additional 1 to clear the Aegis, but I think that's small potatoes ultimately. Just the power of, being able to reset Onomastic to whatever best suits the situation. I don't even know if Syra was in the opponent's hand there, but I just figured, better to navigate around the potential for Syra to be relevant. And ultimately, I mentioned I wasn't sure if I agreed with the call to play Onomastic, to pick off the Onomastic over the Softlight Harmonist there. If they didn't have the Chromatic Rift, then obviously it didn't really matter. But the rationale was, you play Chromatic Rift into the Onomastic just to make a blocker, so that way the Onomastic can no longer swing in. And then at 6 life, you have more things that can block the Onomastic than can block the Harmonist. But didn't ultimately end up mattering, at least it would seem. Because I think they would have just fired off the Chromatic Rift on multicolor there on that final turn. They will play. This is pretty reasonable. Harmonist for just 1/1 for 1 is not amazing, but I mean, Harmonist into Onomastic into holding up Gentle Grasp, eventually getting to Aegis is fine enough. And we're going to be on the draw, so we're going to get to see more cards here to try and find more relevant things to do. Opponent is going to keep 6. And we'll see how this fares. Devotee would be probably my favorite draw here because it lets us develop a 2/2 Harmonist on turn 1. They lead on Forest and another Golden Age. It's going to go find presumably a Plains. No, they find another Forest. Interesting. Does their deck have any double green spells? I don't think so. I guess they don't. I don't know if they have any double white spells either. Ooh, Resolute Reinforcements might be better than the Onomastic. We could hold off on the Harmonist here and maximize value, but I don't think Reinforcements is a ton of value in this matchup. We're just going to run out a 1-mana 1/1 flyer. And let that be its job here. If it eats a removal spell, all the better for it. Stack Conviviplex is the play for turn. We untap and draw Containment Seraph. It's a pretty nice creature here. We'll play out the Plains. go to combat, swing 1. And we've got some choices. We could play the Onomastic, we could hold up Seraph or Gentle Grasp. Sorry, the Reinforcements or Gentle Grasp. I like holding up Reinforcements for when we're doing a Gentle Grasp line. Onomastic here, I think, has got to be on Syra again. Yeah. Onomastic. Set annotation to Syra, Blade of Memories. Or Blade of Memory. Memory singular, not memories plural. They have a plains here, so they're going to Sealing Strike the Onomastic. We know they've got a forest as one of the 4 cards left in their hand. I'm just going to... Oh, I guess I'll... that's not going to clear the annotation, so I'm just going to do it like so. Untap, draw, second Containment Seraph here. No reason to really run out of Seraph, so we're just going to chip in for 1. And pass. Hold up Grasp, hold up Reinforcements. Forest now played out, so we know nothing about their hand anymore. 3 mana for Syra, Blade of Memory. We will let that come in. Golden Age does get to check off a box. Let's flash out the Reinforcements. Make a soldier. Possible that they have Plasma Strike for the Harmonist, but I don't love that play from their perspective here. We will untap, draw another Reinforcements. So we're just going to go Seraph. Set an annotation to mana value 3. Pick off the Syra here. And then we swing in for 3. So this is going to gain them 2 life, draw them 2 cards, but, you know, just something we'll have to accept if and when they pick off the Seraph. Chromatic Rift would be very unfortunate here for us, but we will make do. Something I just put together is that the Conviviplex and the Buffer Reconservatory are also really good with Chromatic Rift, because despite what the text box might indicate, if I understand correctly, even once leveled up, they are still colorless creatures. So Chromatic Rift on monocolored creature does not actually kill the level up lands. That's pretty nice. Another boon for like mono white. Tapping 3. This is another Syra, it looks like. Yup. And then holding up for maybe a removal spell. I forgot that Syra gains you 1 life when she enters. My goodness. Did they gain the 1 off of their first Syra? They did. Yeah, because I chipped in for 1 twice. Untap and draw another Gentle Grasp. The second verse, same as the first. Oh boy. I am just waiting for the Chromatic Rift to knock us out of orbit. Because now they draw 4, gain 4 off of Chromatic Rift. That's going to be pretty devastating. Verdant Sanctum untapped. Oh, is this? That screams Planeswalker here. That just absolutely screams Sylvia, the Rewoven Oath. Oh, untapped land would be amazing here. Untap. Draw Coalesced Mesa that is untapped. Let's play Mesa. Let's go to combat. Let's swing for this. They have Sylvia. Gentle Grasp it. Whew. So that is Rewoven Oath. Getting exiled here can be replayed. So it was going for -4, kill everything but one of our containment Seraphs, but instead we're going to get in for 7 here. And we pass. And if their game plan is Sylvia or Chromatic Rift, we've got the second Gentle Grasp. Sideboard Gentle Grasp. This was one of the matchups that I was really hoping the Gentle Grasp would come in handy for, and it looks like it's gonna. Removal spell, like individual removal spells for the Containment Seraph, I don't know if I can afford to Gentle Grasp here. It looks like pitching the Hopeful Soul Space to recast Sylvia. I have the second Gentle Grasp. I think that's GG's. That is GG. All right, and we took down Green-White Golden Age here. Okay, Gentle Grasp good in tempo strategies. What do you know? All right, that is round 3 cleaned up here. Into round 4, Top Cut's not escaped us yet. We might still get there. So that was a tense one. Very much nickel and diming with what we had. So we'll see how round 4 shapes up, but means we've got a round 4. So hope you all enjoyed this match. If you want to check out more, obviously links in the description below to all the usual resources, all the spaces to sort of check out the cards in the format, and the Custom Magic Discord to join in the conversation and play Revolution for yourself. With that all out of the way, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you all both in next round and in the Revolution chat. Bye-bye.